Welcome to Writers Talk Classical Education. I'm your host, Holly Geiger Lee. I am a former public school educator who has a passion for learning. My love of learning and teaching has carried over into my motherhood. I started my blog, My Little Brick Schoolhouse, in 2021. My mission in starting the blog and the book lists is simple. I want to connect parents with their children through living books. I created book lists spanning a wide range of subjects that make it easier for readers to access and think about noble ideas, truth, and beauty. We are not perfect people, but despite our imperfection, we can see redemptive work in our lives and in the lives of others. Along that same vein, I am writing a living book right now on the life of G.K. Chesterton and hope it will one day bring life to your home or school. A capsule podcast. Why and what is it? It's a series of podcast episodes encapsulated to amount to anywhere between 4 and 20 in number, but usually comprising about 6 episodes. In my capsule podcast, I have 5 guest interviews, plus a monologue on my podcast. Why capsule podcast? Well, for one, I have a family and do not make it a big priority to podcast every week or couple of weeks. I wanted to keep my podcast focused on a set topic, classical education. I wrote a book and I wanted to find a platform to share about it. But most importantly, I want my listeners to journey with me as I ask the questions I've been wondering. Like, how do we homeschool with all of these littles and no older helpers? Is it even possible? Why is humility one of the most important things one can have in a homeschool? How do we inspire wonder and imagination in the home? What is rhetoric? How do you teach it? Can Socratic seminar be implemented beyond the classroom? How can faith impact the atmosphere of a home? What is the one thing veteran homeschooling moms want their kids to take away from their homeschool? How does one follow kids' interests without it getting too crazy? So my special guests are from a myriad of backgrounds. We have moms in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond. And we also have a dad. Thank you, Winston. Each one has a unique story to tell. No two families are the same, but we share unity in a few ways. I wanted to interview individuals from families of faith because this is important to me as I write about my own life and the life of G.K. Chesterton. Why classical education? Well, classical education used to be one of the most prevalent ways to educate. In many parts of our country, it disappeared, but we are seeing a reemergence of the classical method of education in many schools and homeschools. Many great contemporary educators, including 20th century Charlotte Mason, had ideas about education sourced from the classical tradition. The classical tradition points us to ideas that are alive, yet timeless. Why writers talk classical education? Writers have a special connection to ideas. I believe that writing is thinking on paper. We talk about our thinking as we write about our thinking. It's all connected. The thinking comes from reading and discussing these ideas. That's why I ask my guests what books have impacted them as educators. Each one of my guests has contributed to the world of writing in some ways. Their ideas matter. If you know me and my work at My Little Brick Schoolhouse, you know my heart for connecting with children through reading living books. So I asked my podcast guests to name a book they have enjoyed reading with their own children. You will hear them name a few beloved familiar titles along with some new ones, I'm sure. So thank you, friends, for joining me as we writers talk classical education, which is a liberating education for all, as it should be. God's grace is far-reaching, and I believe He is using thinkers like these guests to influence our families, schools, and the broader society. So, get ready to listen and learn. Next, get your pens, pencils, or keyboards out and write about your thoughts. I'd love to hear you mention this podcast as you move into your spheres of influence. So, let's get this party started, my writing thinking friends, with Writers Talk Classical Education.